after me. I don't give a...
Okay, you guys can't see Apollo, but he's right here, off to the side. Are you being shy today? Okay, so today the video I'm reacting to, it's been within the last year, but it's a TED Talk, and it's entitled, that's funny, that was a Freudian slip. Let's Unpack Our Fear of Fatness. And it's by a woman named Athena Nair, and I believe she is Indian American. And I saw the thumbnail, and she looks what they call straight size. So let's watch this.
When you hear the word fat, what do you think of? When I asked some of my classmates, here's what they said. Shameful, scary, unhealthy, ugly. Unfortunately, most of it.
So I feel like shameful, unhealthy, I think ugly was the other one. I think shame is something that we put on ourselves. I mean, I do know, like, in my family, I was teased a lot. I have one particular uncle. I remember being 12 or 13, and he told me if I didn't lose the weight that no man was ever going to want me, which we now know is such an incredibly screwed up thing to say to anyone, because your whole life shouldn't be about trying to catch a mate. And there's someone for everyone. I mean, when I was my heaviest, I still had people hitting on me, even though I've basically been married since I was 18. So that's a screwed up thing to say to anyone, especially a child. So I do think, sometimes shame is taught, obviously, but definitely unhealthy. We know what fat does to our bodies, and we know the hormonal destruction of being morbidly obese what that can do. Estrogen stores fat. So that's why when people have weight loss surgery, they tell women to use a backup method of birth control, because you're extremely fertile during that time.
Of us in this room probably share these associations with the word fat. I mean, that's what we've been told our entire lives. Ads like this one have ingrained a fear of fatness in all of us.
But this billboard is right. Like, I have a friend who just had weight loss surgery April 5th. And she's like, I am planning all these things to do with my wife, and we're going to have so much fun. And, all these things I wouldn't have been able to do. Like, I just look at my own journey from 2018 and I was normal weight, till now when I went to Jamaica in February. The year before, I could not do the Dunn's River Falls excursion. I wasn't strong enough. There were no obese people on that excursion. Well, that's not true. There were 2 or 3 obese people, and once they saw what it was, they stayed at the bottom of the falls and waited for everybody. So you do get your life back.
As a young kid, all I knew was that my body helped me to dance. In the middle years of elementary school, I remember being aware of this pressure to lose weight because I was chubbier than most of my friends. But it was in 5th grade that I started being inundated with all this messaging about how every single part of my body was wrong. In 8th and 9th grade, I suffered from an eating disorder. I didn't understand why it was so hard for me to look like my thin, white friends.
Okay, that's unnecessary. Why it was so hard for me to look like my thin white friends. One of the thinnest women I ever went to school with was Indian. So I don't understand. Hopefully she's going to go into that. I know that in America, and it is predominantly white, that magazines and media have predominantly white faces in them, and I get that. I also looked through those magazines and felt terrible about myself. I mean, I was 12 years old and I wore a 34 double D bra already. That messed with me horribly, because older boys were hitting on me, and then I'd be like, I'm 12, and that would freak them out, obviously. And then it you see these ads, and when I was a kid, heroin chic was the look. Remember Kate Moss, like in the late 80s and early 90s, and she was this big around and literally looked like she was dying. That was what was in. I was never going to be that, ever. So you can blame print ad, movies, TV shows, and none of us look like that.
I remember researching diets that would help me lose my belly fat, pro-anorexia Tumblr pages that encouraged me to keep restricting so I could be skinny, be perfect. With the support of therapists, family, and friends, I was able to overcome my eating disorder. But I still walked around believing that my body was unworthy because of its color and size. Junior year, I listened to an episode of a favorite podcast of mine, This American Life. The episode was called Tell Me I'm Fat. It was largely based on Lindy West's book, Shrill, which is now a TV show you can watch on Hulu. And it got me thinking about fatness as a label and an identity that has been associated with shame.
Okay, so she's talking about this label of fatness. When you take one piece of who you are and make that the banner that you wear over your head, that is on you, because you can change that at any time. So I went many years not telling people, and I've talked about this before, not telling people that I had weight loss surgery, because I didn't want to be the girl who had weight loss surgery. That's all people wanted to talk to me about. I would have people tell me that I took the easy way out, and then I've been a mother, a wife, and during Bob's career, active duty, I was not only a wife, but the wife of a fighter pilot. Like, there was pressure, and maybe it was internalized, but I know I've talked to other wives who felt the same way, of looking a certain way, being a certain way, which I never fit that either, because I've always had a big mouth. I've always said what I felt. I wasn't 5'10" and blonde hair and blue eyed. I didn't fit into the mold of any of these labels. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to be known as, or what that like she's saying, the label of fatness.
Not one that is inherently shameful. Once I was introduced to the foreign idea that being fat was okay, an idea I'd been starved of my entire life.
Okay, but being fat doesn't make you a bad person. Being fat doesn't mean you're evil and ugly and all those things, all these negative connotations that we take with it. What the medical community is saying, what science says, is that fat is unhealthy and it will lead to an early death. And I don't know why that's considered fat phobic. I mean, you can Google that. I mean, that's the Health at Every Size movement. The fat acceptance community will say that it's fat phobic to say that being fat is unhealthy. It's the truth. It's science. It's not.
I was hungry for more. I started researching body positivity and found out about the Body Positive, an organization that has been helping people develop balanced, joyful self-care and a relationship with their bodies guided by love.
If you love your body, you'll take care of your body. If you love your body, you don't want to destroy it unnecessarily. I'm not saying don't enjoy having the meal you want occasionally. So, for example, son, when did you start working out with me?
June.
So he started out in June, and I've told you guys my son is 6'8", and he started out with me in June at 290 pounds.
Yeah.
He was 290 pounds. He got on the scale the other day, and he's down to 264. So, and he carries his weight in his belly. Well, he's got really big legs, though, too, like big, strong quads and hamstrings. And he was like, I'm only 23. This isn't going to be easier. He knows, he's heard me talk about my struggle with weight, and I I tried to lead by example. When I started training again, I absolutely wanted my kids and my husband to come and train with me. But I was not going to push that off on them and be like, you're a piece of shit if you don't come to the gym with me. And now Justice is really getting into a groove, and he's just doing better and better and better. And, you know, he goes out and he goes for walks almost every single day. And he still has 2 cheat meals a week. And he usually saves them for the weekend when he hangs out with his friends. But that's an example of, you can love your body and be body positive and want to take care of it, which means not having excess body fat, and still enjoy a meal out with your friends. I don't know why those two seem to be mutually exclusive in the body positive community. I don't understand that.
Forgiveness and humor. I was amazed that they had reached such a big community, and I immediately thought, I need this. We all need this. So with a couple of friends, I brought them to my all-girls high school where they held a 2-day training. Those 2 days changed my life. I was introduced to 2 simple yet transformative ideas. 1, it doesn't need to be the norm to hate my body.
In this day and age, though, what is normal? Because, right, Apollo. I don't know if you can hear his noises he makes. He's right by the microphone. But what is normal? You know, I was kind of laughing. I was watching, it was some TikToks or something, and it was saying, you know, everyone is different, everyone's unique. But then doesn't that make us the same then? Doesn't that mean everyone, do you know what I mean? Like, no one's normal. And even when you see these bodies in, especially print, you know, in Cosmo magazine or whatever, those bodies have been edited for the gods. And those models don't even look like that.
Body. Like, what? And 2, being fat is not a bad thing. In the same way that some people are born with dark or light hair.
No, ma'am. I'm not accepting that. Being fat is not the same as being born with dark or light hair. Or your skin color. You were born, you can't change that. I mean, yeah, I can go outside and get a tan, and I can put contacts in, and I can change my hair color with dye. But you control whether you're fat or not. That's a bunch of, I'm going to have high blood pressure problems after this video, aren't I?
Some people are born short, some tall.
No. Comparing someone's height to their body fat is not the same.
People are born to be thin, others fat. People are not born to be fat. That's bullshit. That is such bullshit, because that is, oh my God. And people are listening to this and they're buying into this. And this is what happens. I've talked to people. I would love, when I get enough subscribers where I can I think I can live stream. I would love to see if someone who had been in the health at every size or the body positive movement and then realized that was dangerous and they left that, and why. I would love to talk to someone about that, because I've never considered myself, I've never bought into the health at every size or the body positive movement. As I was gaining my weight and then trying to lose the weight and finally having weight loss surgery, I've never believed in any of that. I always knew that being healthy, meant having, the right amount of body fat. We need fat on our bodies. I realize that. I recognize that for proper, especially hormone function. But I also recognize, if you had looked at me in 2018, that first vacation Bob and I took as a couple, I was the size 2 American, US, in a dress. Size 2, very small. I smoked 1.5 to 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And I drank a ton of diet soda, which, I still enjoy some diet soda. That's not going to make you fat. But my point is that I was able to not eat because I was smoking so much and drinking diet soda. And I had no stamina. I had no energy. I was on the couch in bed all day,
I couldn't hardly do anything on vacation but lay on the beach, which, I mean, that was heavenly, but Bob wanted to do excursions and stuff. And there were days I was sending him out to do things by himself because I physically couldn't do that. That's not healthy either. That's not body positive. You know, I had to come this complete full circle and realize that I was still killing myself, even though I wasn't fat anymore. I was smoking my lungs to black lung status. Like,
But we're surrounded by a pervasive diet culture.
I'm sorry, I
one that
upset you.
glorifies thinness and demonizes fatness.
Okay, I hate this term, diet culture. A system that values weight, shape, and size over health. Okay, well, I'm sorry, but being morbidly obese, you're going to tell me that's healthy? And you know what? I don't buy into people saying, but I'm happy like this. No, you're not. No, you're not. I don't believe that either.
Today I'm going to unpack diet culture and fat phobia for you all. We'll talk about how our society has come to
Oh my God,
stigmatize
we're not
fat
even 3
bodies
minutes into
and the
this.
harmful effects of this stigmatization. And we'll talk about a key solution to this issue.
Okay, I do agree with this graphic. There's no wrong way to have a body. I agree with that because, like I was saying, okay, my son is 6'8". Our daughters are 6'1", and our youngest one, I say she's 6 feet tall. I want to say she says she's 5'10" or 5'11". I don't remember, but they're tall people, okay? And so they're not going to be petite people. You know, my son's never going to wear a pair of skinny jeans. It's just not, you know, I don't think they make them that big. He wears a size 17 shoe. Those are genetics, but that doesn't mean that he has to be morbidly obese. Oh, because you're a big dude, that you're just going to be a big dude. That's bullshit. Oh my gosh, it just makes me so mad. So yes, there are all kinds of bodies. I remember being a kid, a little girl. My father's 6'4", and my mom was like my height, like 5'8" or 5'9", I think. And I wanted to be 4'11" or 6 feet tall. I did gymnastics as a kid, like for a couple years, like 6, 7 years old. And by the time I left gymnastics, I was already like 4 inches taller than everybody else. So I wanted to be 4'11" or 6 feet tall, and I'm exactly in the middle. Basically, I'm 5'8".
Body positivity. Ever since we're kids, we're inundated with messaging about the so-called obesity epidemic.
The so-called obesity epidemic? The so-called. Oh my God. Google obesity epidemic America. Obesity epidemic and insert your country. It is.
The media's messaging has led us to believe that all obese people are unhealthy and that someone's weight is completely in their control.
It is. There might be 1/8 of 1/2 of 1% of people who it might not be. There are certain medical conditions. It is so rare. It is so rare though. That she's so full of shit. This is pissing me off.
We hear about the drastically rising levels of obesity in the past several decades, but that's partially because in 1998, the National Institutes of Health lowered the threshold for someone to be considered obese.
Because science, oh my God, science and the medical technology, medical knowledge, all the research that has been done realized that they were wrong. Just like back in the day, when they didn't have anesthesia for people to have surgery, so you chewed on a piece of boot leather. Now we have the technology for people to have anesthesia and to be knocked out and be comfortable and given painkillers. Like, this is stupid.
Obese. As CNN put it, millions of Americans became fat Wednesday, even if they didn't gain a pound. It's also scientifically inaccurate to consider weight the primary measure.
I want to see what I'm going to have to look it up. This is a true, like, blind reaction. I had not watched this video. Part of me wishes now I had watched it so that I could have things to put up to show. I might have Justice put something in there about the obesity epidemic, and I want to see what the guideline changes were in 1998.
Measure of a person's health, but the U.S. health system is completely centered on weight. Doctors and the media are constantly encouraging us to go on diets and to lower our body mass index, our BMI.
Do you know why? Because it's science-based that having a healthy BMI lowers your risk of, for example, coronary artery disease, heart disease. Lowers your risk of developing arthritis. I have rheumatoid and osteoarthritis already, and let me tell you, every day is a struggle. I feel like I'm one of those, I'm like a 1973 Dodge Power Wagon, that you got to like pump the gas, put some gas in the carburetor, and it takes a minute to turn over, and you got to give her a minute, let it warm up, start again. Like, I don't just jump out of bed every morning. Like, why wouldn't you want to be as healthy as you could?
But there are a lot of issues with diets and with the BMI.
Okay, here's why. 95% of dieters regain lost weight within 5 years, and I'll tell you why this happens. Because people go on a diet. And I'm using air quotes because they go on a diet, they eat in a calorie deficit, they hit their target weight, and then they go back to how they were eating, which got them in trouble in the first place. Instead of saying, I am going to change my lifestyle. I want to figure a way where I can eat to lose this weight, figure out what my maintenance calories are, and then eat this way for the rest of my life. You're damn right. If I went back and I started eating McDonald's 3 times a day, guess what? I'm going to gain the weight right back. I'll be over 400 pounds by then. And yeah, I will be one of the people who failed.
95% of dieters regain the weight that they lose within 5 years and often gain back even more. Dieters are caught in a cycle of yo-yo dieting, starting with restricting.
The famine response is not based in science either. People also call it starvation mode. That's bullshit too, because if starvation mode was a thing, weight loss surgery wouldn't work, would it? The first at least 2 months of me post-operatively after weight loss surgery, I maybe ate 500 calories a day. Guess what? I was fine. I never passed out. I still went to work. I had 3 small children. I kept a home. That's horseshit. It's not true. And if there was a famine response, wouldn't the people who are in third world countries where there's literally famine, wouldn't they not be skinny? Which
leads to the famine response, where the body is so deprived of nutrition that it craves even more food than it normally needs, which leads us to binge eating.
No.
And then we feel the shame of eating and go back to restricting. And dieting is actually more harmful than any form of obesity itself. We're told that obesity causes cardiovascular issues, but actually, this pattern of weight fluctuation, losing weight, gaining it back over and over again.
She's right. Weight fluctuation from dieting actually does. This is true, which is why you need to figure out a way you can eat for the rest of your life so that you don't gain the weight back. That's the problem. Why can't they look at the cycle, that little chart she just had up there, and say, okay, where's the breakdown here? Why does this keep happening? Because of the food. It's the food. It's not because you're meant to be fat. You're not meant to eat Big Macs every day. Like, go back to a whole food diet, period. Buy the highest quality food you possibly can. I eat a lot of grass-fed bison. I prefer grass-fed beef. My kids like chicken and eggs, which I've learned that I have a very high intolerance to, so I don't eat those as much. But all the meat that I buy, I do buy, organic, grass-fed, whatever. Same with produce. You've got your dirty dozen. You want to make sure that you're buying those organic. Like bananas, you don't need to buy organic bananas. They have a peel that protects it. So anyway.
Increases risk of cardiovascular disease by much more than just having a heavy weight itself.
Okay, well, let's just stay fat then. Screw it. We'll just stay fat and it'll be fine.
Pacer, exercise physiologist, asks, is it the obesity that is causing the disease, or is it the fact that people are trying to become not obese?
Yes, the obesity is causing the disease. Absolutely.
Then there's the BMI, considered to be a significant.
I love how she has the question up there and then doesn't follow up with the answer.
Of our health. But the BMI wasn't created as a measure of health in the first place. It was in the 1830s that Belgian astronomer Adolphe Quetelet created the BMI out of his interest to observe average measurements of a population. Quetelet's
Average measurements of a population. That's right. So what she's going to say something about how BMI isn't accurate for whoever. BMI isn't accurate for people who are muscular. You know, Justice, throw up a graphic here of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1974. Because, yeah, the BMI probably shows him as obese. Heavily muscled people are going to be shown as obese, and clearly they're not.
interests included statistics, sociology, astronomy, not medicine or health. His participants were all upper class.
But the medical community did decide to use that as an average to get a gauge. They're not right. They're doing it to get a gauge of the average population, and that's exactly what it still is.
Class French and Scottish people, a small subsection of the population. He chose the two variables of height and weight completely arbitrarily.
Oh, really? Were you
Quetelet
there?
intended for the BMI to be a measure of health. Rather, it was just a statistic of a small group of white upper-class Europeans of the 1800s. In the 1900s, eugenicists would use the BMI to justify the superiority of white physical features. So what doctors are
Okay, show me the statistics. Show me that. Can you show me that?
using to measure our health is based on two superficial features, height and weight, based solely on white populations. But the BMI is regarded as the gold
And can you show me that too? And no,
standard for measuring our health.
she's saying these things and then not following up with any proof. Show me a study. Show me the American Medical Association saying that. Prove it to me. You're just saying things that are so inflammatory, clearly.
Typically target fat people, especially fat people of color, in the forms of sizeism and fat phobia.
Really, because within my own culture, on the Mexican side of my family, they were the ones who gave me more crap about being fat than the white side of my family did. Within your own race is going to be harder on you. I mean, we can look at within the black population with colorism. I mean, I know it's upsetting, isn't it? Remember that whole series Oprah did on colorism and, light-skinned girls and dark-skinned girls and that whole,
Fat phobia and size discrimination assert that all people should come in one size.
No, it
A
doesn't.
ridiculous notion if we consider someone arguing that we should all have the same hair color or arm length. Our capitalist society has taken advantage of the medical industry's equation
I love it. Our capitalist society. Down with capitalism.
of weight to health. But thin people can be unhealthy. A thin person could smoke.
I just said that. And she's starting to talk about smoking. She's right. Yeah. There are more things, and I have argued that for forever. There are more things than just height and weight. But at the same time, when we have definitive proof that obesity leads to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancers, there are cancers linked to obesity. Like, hello?
A pack of cigarettes every day or not eat a generally balanced diet, but they wouldn't get the same criticism about their health that a fat person would. Studies
See, I call bullshit on that too, because when I was at my thinnest, my doctors were on me more than when I was at my biggest. So again, it's cherry picking information, cherry picking
have
situations.
shown that it is habits that matter, not weight. A 2016 study that followed participants for an average of 19 years found that unfit skinny people are twice as likely to get diabetes as fit fat people.
Okay, so that's from the Huffington Post, which, okay, I want to know who did the study. Okay, I would like to see the study.
Habits, not weight. But it is fat people that
But fat people still shouldn't be okay with being morbidly obese, because you will get sick from that too. And I have fat people who will argue with me and say, well, my metabolic screening, my blood work all came back fine. Okay, today it's going to. I promise you, it's not going to stay that way. It will not stay that way. When you have youth on your side, yeah, you can get away with some of this stuff. You can get away with some of this stuff. But it's not going to stay that way. It's not.
I carry around the burden of being labeled as unhealthy, out of control, and morally deviant.
Morally deviant, really? Really? Morally deviant. Unhealthy, yeah. And then out of control, a lot of people who are morbidly obese have binge eating disorder. Does that just not connotate doesn't that conjure up in your mind binge eating disorder? Have you ever seen someone who has binge eating disorder on a binge? I've seen people take food out of the garbage. So, not that all fat people have that problem, but I know my own experience, when I was at my heaviest, I was out of control. It was never enough. Okay, so there's a restaurant here in the United States called the Claim Jumper. And their portions are ginormous, bigger than any restaurant I've ever been to. They had a meal called the ore cart, like, an ore cart going into a mine. And they brought it out in a miniature ore cart full of ribs, chicken, whatever you ordered. And it would just be heaping over. A baked potato, I've never seen them in my life bigger than at this restaurant. They were this big. And then you put your sour cream and your butter and your cheese and your chives and whatever. They had a 7-layer cake. It wasn't a piece of cake. It was a cake. It was a whole cake was your dessert. The portions were insane. And I would go there and I would eat all of it. That is out of control. I don't know why we have such a hard time saying how it is. Why? Because people's feelings get hurt. And then you're mean and you're fat phobic and you're this and you're that and you're whatever. And the whole thing, you know what? Yes, I am afraid of being fat again. It terrifies me to no end because I know what it did to my health. I know what it did to the quality of my life. I don't ever want to be that again.
This is where fat phobia becomes an issue of equity.
And morally deviant, no. That's just, again, it's something to throw in to be inflammatory.
Doctors spent 28% less time with obese patients during appointments, and more than half of doctors from a 2003 survey viewed obese patients as awkward, unattractive, ugly, and non-compliant.
Okay. Some people are assholes. Doctors can fall into that too. So doctors spend 28% less time with, I don't know why she has obese in quotation marks. There's a definition for it. And it's used in medical terminology. It's not it's not a made up word. I have spoken to some of my friends who are physicians and talked to them about this, including a physician who used to see me, and asked if this was true. And an answer I got back was, if you don't care about your health, why should I care as the doctor? Why should I care about your health? If you come in for something, I will, give you the medication, refer you to a specialist, send you for blood work, whatever it is that you need. But I'm not going to spend more time with you trying to help you become healthy, if you don't care. And doctors will sometimes see the non-compliance of you didn't lose weight as you don't care. So then why should I care? I being the doctor. And I do think it's unfortunate. I remember when I was huge, I remember being in the hospital with my youngest child when I was pregnant, and I was like 275 pounds at the end with her. And I had a doctor come in. He was a peri-neonatologist, and he brought up to me that I needed to lose weight after Jaden was born. And he was awkward. It wasn't that I was awkward. He was very afraid. I could tell that made him very nervous to talk to me about it. Like I said, people are assholes, and just because you're a doctor doesn't mean that you're not an asshole. And here's the great thing. If your doctor treats you that way, get a new doctor. I have fired many physicians over the years for one reason or another. And so if your doctor treats you like this, get a new doctor. There are, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to, in the United States, you don't have to stay with your doctor.
This kind of fat phobia can be lethal. Rebecca Hiles suffered from severe bloody coughing fits for 6 years. She was very active but kept finding it hard to breathe, and she would go to the ER whenever she had her frequent coughing fits. But when her blood test came back normal, the doctors told her that the solution was to simply lose weight. This didn't help Rebecca. Finally, at the age of 23, after another trip to the ER, the doctors decided to do a CT scan, and they found a tumor in her bronchial tube. Rebecca's doctors of the past 6 years had ignored her symptoms and focused on her weight. And it's because of this that she had to have her entire left lung removed.
That's horrible, and I feel so bad for her. I had an experience when my son, who's my first, was 3 months old, and so I was 24 years old, and it started almost immediately after he was born, where I would have these attacks, and it was always at night, and it felt like someone was taking a hot spear and stabbing me through my sternum out my back. And the only relief I could get was being in the shower. We had like a regular bathtub shower combo, and I would sit in the bathtub hunched over with the water as hot as I could stand on my back, and I would fall asleep like that until the water ran cold, and then I would get up, and there was nothing I could do. And for 3 months, almost every night, I was going to the emergency room, and they were like, don't know what's wrong with you, don't know what's wrong with you. Finally, one night, I looked at my husband and I said, I'm not leaving the hospital until they figure out what's wrong with me, because I can't live like this. Like, this is ridiculous. And I went in, the triage nurse. Now, I was with an HMO. I was with Kaiser Permanente. So I couldn't just go to another emergency room. I had to go to a Kaiser emergency room. And so I went in, and the triage nurse one night was an older lady from the South. I loved her. She had this Southern accent, and I told her my symptoms, and she's like, you've been in here every night almost for 3 months. And I said, yeah, I know. And she said, well, didn't anyone check your gallbladder? And I said, no. And she said, give me a urine sample and I'll tell you if you have gallstones. So the long story short, I was in surgery in 90 minutes and I was full of gallstones. They removed my gallbladder and I was better. So at 24, gallbladder disease isn't necessarily something you're looking for. Now it is more because I was obese, and that is something that happens when you're obese, is you end up with a diseased gallbladder and you need surgery. So that's awful. I feel absolutely horrible for her. And a young girl, that's terrible. That's not right.
Rebecca is not alone in this.
Now, did she sue the hospital? Like, if it was really because they were telling her you're fat and this is why you're having this problem? Like, if she's having, that just blows my mind, because if you're coughing up blood, that's not because you're fat. Like, I want to, okay.
There are countless stories of fat
It's
people
awful.
who have had PCOS, a thyroid condition, cancer, whose debilitating health conditions have been attributed to their weight, so that they were diagnosed far too late.
Okay, so we also all know of an infamous YouTuber right now who is almost 600 pounds, and she ignored bleeding for 2 or 3 years, finally went to the emergency room, and she was immediately treated, and I want to say she had a full hysterectomy within a month or something of that, going to the emergency room and saying what was wrong. So there are countless times of that not happening, and there are other times of skinny people being misdiagnosed. So it doesn't happen to just fat people.
We're living in a world where fat people are being ignored by our doctors. We're living in a world brainwashed by the fear of fat, so that 45% of adults are preoccupied with their weight, some or all of the time. And half of 3 to 6-year-old girls.
Okay, then half of 3 to 6-year-old girls saying they're scared of being fat, that starts at home. So if that's happening, and I know I've been guilty of it, I have apologized to my children because I know I spent a lot of their growing up saying those things out loud, like, oh, I look fat in this, or I'm too fat, or them seeing me restrict my portions because I was afraid of gaining my weight back. Absolutely.
See that they're scared of being fat. This is a world that is begging for change. And that's where body positivity comes in. Sonia Renee Taylor defines radical self-love as our inherent state of being as worthy and enough.
And I agree. I think that's great. But isn't radical self-love loving yourself enough to doing what is necessary to be healthy? Why is that? Why can't you have radical self-love and be working on trying to be as healthy as you possibly can be? Apollo's over here making weird noises.
To me, body positivity is radical self-love. It's an unconditional love and appreciation for my body. It's fighting to live in a world free from diet culture and fat phobia.
What I see, I will continue to ask the question: why can't you have radical self-love, and why can't that mean I'm going to love the one body you get in this life, to be as healthy as I can be for? If you're a mother, I know my motivation was my children when they were very young when I had the surgery, till now, where when I got back into the gym in 2019 and started training again, cleaned my diet up, did all these things, it was because I wanted to see grandchildren. My husband retires when he's 55. He's already retired from the Air Force, and he'll be retiring in 6 or 7 years now. At the age of 55, I'll be 54. That's a lot of life left. And I want to go travel the world with him. And I want to go jump out of airplanes if we want to. I want to do all these things. And if I'm 300, 400, 500 pounds, guess what? That's not going to happen. And I'm not going to see my grandchildren. And I'm not going to see my children get married and graduate from college and all these things. That's not going to happen. Why? Because I'll be dead. Or I'll be so debilitated that I can't leave my home.
Body positive, I've come to a grounded understanding of sizeism and fat phobia. And I've come to a place where...
Okay, that graphic that was just up, those women weren't fat.
Where I unconditionally love my body. Doesn't mean I like it every day. I mean, I unconditionally love my family and get into fights with them all the time. In the same way, I love my body and sometimes I have bad days with my body. The point is, I don't reserve love for my body with the condition that it must be skinny.
And see, skinny, the whole skinny, I'm going to put in quotation marks because y'all put obese in quotation marks. I want to be strong, not skinny. You know, I don't think skinny equals health. And I believe a lot of people, I mean, I can put up a picture of Eugenia Cooney right now, and I'm sure everyone would agree with me that that was not healthy. Just like I can put up a picture of someone who is 500 pounds and you'll agree that that's not healthy either. I'm not saying either one of those people should hate themselves, because they shouldn't. You should have enough love for yourself, for your body, and for the people who love you to not watch you die like that.
I work through my body issues and come back to a grounded place of love, not fear. When I feel shame about my stomach rolls, for example, I ask myself, who is profiting off me feeling this way? What institutions have socialized me to feel this way?
Oh dear.
I think of all the amazing things that my stomach allows me to do, and I hold myself with unconditional love. I remind myself that, as Audre Lorde said,
what things do stomach rolls allow you to do?
Loving myself isn't self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political work.
Okay, so let's break this down. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. Really? You have the right to remain fat. Do you guys remember that book that was put out by Virgie Tovar? And eating cake in mass amounts, going out and eating whatever you want, is that not self-indulgence? It's self-preservation, exactly. Getting your body into the healthiest form you possibly can, because that is self-preservation. I don't think this is, oh my goodness.
I'm now a first year in college, and it is tough to be surrounded by diet culture in most spaces I occupy. Every time I walk into a dining hall, I somehow hear someone talking about the freshman 15 or how they can't get dessert today because they're scared they'll get fat.
We just talked about indulging, so why?
But it's because of body positivity that I'm able to name diet culture for what it is, and I fight to bring us back to a place of radical self-love. As a body positive person, I am liberated. I have so much more capacity to commit to my academics, my activism, my friendships, my family, now that I'm not constantly thinking about what clothes I can or can't wear or what food I should or shouldn't eat.
I mean, good for her. That's awesome. I also think that being aware of your health and being mindful of what you are eating, because that radical self-love should kick in. You should want the best for your body that you possibly can give it. And that includes high quality food over garbage, fast food, or sugar-filled things. Yeah.
And by loving myself, I have more love for others. We talk about loving ourselves.
And why can't someone, I have friends who are health coaches, trainers, physical therapists, physicians, and they work to help people love themselves more, to have that radical self-love, to want that for themselves. I know definitively if I had not gotten back into the gym and gotten myself sorted out, and every day is a work in progress because I have radical self-love. Not every day is perfect. I don't believe I would have made it to 50. I'm 47 years old right now. I really don't think I would have made it to 50. Marcia, my trainer that I see 6 days a week, she says, when you first came to me, your skin color was gray. I don't think I was on a path to making it past the age of 50. Ooh, sorry. And radical self-love. Do you know how hard it was to not smoke anymore? You know, I really like McDonald's French fries. Del Taco has good French fries too. But you have to make choices sometimes, and I don't know why that's fat phobic.
As if it's something we'll achieve one day when we're old and gray and we're tired. But why do we have to wait till then? When we were babies, we loved ourselves without a second thought. We can get back to that place of radical self-love, and we can do it now. Study after...
So that's great, and that's true because babies come into this world untouched, untainted by their environment. So how are you going to make the world this perfect place of being? That's just not going to happen. That's not reality.
Study has proven that weight and size aren't a measurement of our health.
Remember when she talked about an average of the population? For the average population, it's one indicator. They focus, they get this laser tunnel vision on the one thing, BMI, BMI, BMI. It is one way to measure.
So why do we beat ourselves up for having bodies that fight to keep us alive and well every single day?
Yeah, because when you're 500 pounds, you know how much of a fight your body has to give to stay alive? The undue stress on it. There was, and I can link it if you guys are interested, there was an autopsy done on an obese person. And the medical examiner is going through like how much more enlarged the heart was, how diseased this was and that was. And you see it, and you see how greasy everything is, no kidding, how greasy everything was from the visceral fat. And the the medical examiner was having a hard time at certain points holding on to things because they were slippery. And that's not radical self-love to die like that. And I believe the woman died from heart disease.
Why do fat people face judgment and discrimination from our society for simply existing in the bodies that they were born with?
Not that it's right, because it's not to discriminate. I've mentioned this paper before. There's a paper on the internet called Obesity, the Last Bastion of Prejudice. And people are prejudiced against that because it's not normal to be morbidly obese. And so if you see me, I get judged for my tattoos. If I'm, dressed a certain way, I'm certainly treated when I go shopping. And if I plan on, let's say I plan on buying a whole new wardrobe for something, I will dress more conservatively. I will have my hair styled, a nice, my face done. I'll wear heels. I have a whole little uniform I wear because I will be treated better when I dress that way than when I walk in looking like a bum, right? So I'm not saying that it's right, but I can tell you why people are treated differently. If you have two people who apply for a job and they're equally qualified, if their resumes are identical and one person is obese and one person is not and is what's considered a healthy weight, the person who's a healthy weight is more than likely going to get hired. And you can look at studies that show that obese people are sick more. They cost the economy billions of dollars every year from sick days lost, from surgeries that end up happening, hospitalizations. And that's an unfortunate fact. It's not being fat phobic to show you the data that says this is what happens.
There's no good reason. So I offer you the choice today.
It is good reason.
To join me and so many others in a place of radical self-love. Because when you begin to love yourself, your love for others and your capacity for life will grow too. You can take it or leave it, but why the heck wouldn't you take it? Thank you.
I mean, and if you look at her, she's not 400 pounds either. So this subject always gets me worked up, and I apologize if I offended anyone. That's never my intention. I always want to have a dialogue, and I feel like I come at it from a completely different perspective because I feel like I've come full circle and I have dealt with things along the entire spectrum. So if you guys have any questions or comments, if you want to have a dialogue in the comment section, I welcome that. Let's be respectful of one another, and it's okay for you to have a different view on things than I do, and for us to still be respectful to one another. I don't know why in this day and age we can't seem to do that anymore. However, I believe that we can. Right, Apollo? Are you ready? I know, it took me a while, didn't it? All right, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.
Please repeat after me.